Hi, I've been traveling throughout a number of different countries, mostly in Asia, and I've been going to Buddhist monasteries purely for the pleasure of my own enjoyment, and I was interested to see how life is in these monasteries. As I was in these monasteries, I began to see certain patterns repeat themselves, and it made me think about some ideas around the polyvagal theory, and I just wanted to share those with you. So I went to the Minobu Monastery and Temple in Japan. I was there for 1 month. Then I went to the Gasa Thuten Choling Monastery and School in Bhutan. Then I had the rare opportunity of going to the Tsokni Chekak Ling Nunnery in Nepal, and that's where I made a video of a group of about 60 Buddhist nuns laying on the floor tremoring and chanting. You can go to my YouTube channel to see that. Then I went to the Kopan Monastery in Nepal. Now this was interesting. I took a 10-day course on Buddhism, just an introductory course for the pleasure of it. That's all I was doing. But there were 90 students there, most from Europe, both Eastern and Western Europe, and I had a chance to talk to them and observe their behavior in the monastery. And this is where I saw some ideas about the polyvagal theory that I thought were really interesting. So I'm just going to share those with you. So we're all familiar with the polyvagal theory. Down the bottom is green, that's social engagement. And then in the middle is yellow, which is the sympathetic nervous system, which increases our flight or our fight response. Then we've got this flooding where we have panic and rage and intense emotions. This area is all in red. And up at the top, we would have this freezing, numbing, dissociation, and fawning, which comes from the dorsal vagal response. Now, what I discovered when I was there were a lot of people, young people between the sort of 20s, 30s, and 40s, many of whom had quit their job or taking long vacations from their job, and they're journeying, they're searching for what life is about for them, what meaning does it have, etc. But in that process, this is where I noticed the pattern. What happened was, in the sympathetic response, these people, they leave their country and their jobs. Many social responsibilities are taken away, which means they have fewer distractions. This means there's less activation of the sympathetic nervous system. So they came to this monastery and reduced the level of external activation that they had to get involved in. And this was very important because it was sort of an initial step to them being able to downregulate their nervous system. What I then saw while we were living in a monastic environment was that by adding silence, peacefulness, stillness, predictable, and a serene environment, grounded role models like the monks, the safety was increased. So these people reduced their sympathetic nervous system, but seemed to increase their ventral vagal nervous system just by being in this environment. What I noticed among many of these participants was when the activation of the sympathetic nervous system is reduced, and the activity of the ventral vagus nerve is strengthened, then the dorsal vagus nerve seems to automatically begin to reduce its defenses and discharges any physical, psychological, and emotional history that it has stored from past events. Now, with the clearing of the sympathetic nervous system and the emptying of the dorsal vagal nervous system, people can come down into this place where they actually had their emotional releases right in this monastery, and then there was this co-regulating behavior that was natural in the monastery, meaning the monks, the environment, the stillness, all the participants were being kind and gentle. The co-regulating happened because of the environment that the people were living in. Now that was the first part of the recovery process, but then we have to go into the area of post-traumatic growth, and this is how I saw it apply itself in a monastic setting. So look at this we have number 1 up here, which is where we try to come out of the dorsal vagal reaction of immobility and numbness. That's the first part of the recovery process. And then we have the second part. And the second part is this whole thing about a transformation point or reframing the experience or a point of a new perspective and going from disillusion to evolution. That's the post-traumatic growth process. Now, in the monasteries, what happened was, since they had very little sympathetic activation and the dorsal vagal circuit was releasing its traumas, the question they came up with was, why did this happen to me? Does it have any purpose or value in my life? Those are natural questions here that we ask ourselves in order to reframe the experience from being nothing but damaging to us to potentially being growthful for us, and that's what post-traumatic growth is. But in the monastery, here's what they really did. The monastery invites people to explore the Buddhist teachings on various introspective topics without imposing their own views. They simply encourage self-examination, self-curiosity, and self-exploration of the range of experiences of our human existence. So they talk very directly and openly about things like suffering, compassion, attachment, aversion, all those types of topics. And by addressing those topics directly, the person is starting to let go of their dorsal vagal response, coming down to transforming their trauma, what happened to them in life, which is a little bit why many of them were there. They had some difficulties in life. They're trying to integrate them. But the monastic setting seemed to provide this amazing holding place, role models, sensitivity. They came out of a culture where they experienced some sort of traumatic experience. Now they're in this nurturing environment. So that's all I want to say, is that somehow within the monastic experience, it looked to me like they were actually following the polyvagal theory but had no idea they were doing it. So that's what I found out. I think it's interesting. I know it might be a little bit of theory, but when I was there experiencing it, it made a whole lot of sense to me. So thanks for listening. Bye.